Hello, I think we're live. I think we're live. Are we live? Looks like we're live. Welcome to the stream of Divinity. I'm Sean, and this is How to Hero, where it's my job to awaken the hero within you. There's a hero within all of us. And today I wanted to talk about addiction and mental health, etc. It's a big topic. I was going to use my experience, in as much as it's relevant, to talk about it from a spiritual evolution or metaphysical perspective. So we can try to use these concepts to heal ourselves and work on ourselves, if that makes sense. And it's a big topic, and one that I should preface the whole thing by saying I am not a doctor or a therapist or a psychologist even. I have done no formal training. So who am I to talk about all these things? I am just a man on the internet. So, take what I say and use your discernment to assess whether or not it sounds reasonable to believe or not. And everything I say is not medical advice or anything like that. I'm going to make sure to not talk about that type of thing. What I want to try and get out of this is sort of how we use these, what I would call ailments, right? Mental health issues or addiction issues. How we use these ailments as fuel for spiritual growth or personal development. Even we could just call it personal development. Doesn't have to do anything with spirituality, which is actually something I wanted to talk about quick. Somebody in the comments mentioned that my origin of information, they wanted to hear more about that, about where we came from and stuff like that. And so what I had said to them was, I could say that, because this is true for me, my experience. I recall now participating in some of the planning that went into the design of the human race. Right? That's a grand statement. Now, how long did I wrestle with, should I even ever say something like that? A long time. Because it's absurd. It's absurd. Right? So instead of talking like that, where I've remembered things of that sort of nature, and have no explanation other than it just feels like I just recall this as if it was, I don't know. That's almost how it feels when I get a download. So it's like remembering, because that's how my cognition works. It's precognition. It's a clear knowing, or clear cognitive ability. So that's how my psychic abilities work. It's just clear knowing. I don't see a lot of imagery necessarily. I'm starting to see more now, but anyways, that's how it works. So people often have questions like, where do you get your information? And so I just wanted to address that here, because I mentioned it in my naming, but people have more questions. So there's two ways we could approach it. We could say, I get my information from spirit, which is what I believe. I get my information from spirit, which is an intelligent energy that guides me. Okay? Spirit has spokespeople that are spirit guides, is how I view it. And these spirit guides are helping me to navigate what I'm doing and where I'm getting this information. Some information I read, right? I just read it, and it's guided to me to read this book at this time, or this, right? Because all of this is predetermined. So, hi Marty, hi Kevin, welcome. Thank you for joining. And I'm going to get into the mental health and addiction soon. But I just wanted to get this out of the way, because it's a important thing to say, I guess, and it's important people understand where I come up with any of my theories and things that I'm talking about, because a lot of it's going to be I have no reference material, right? So anyways, so there's a lot of valid questions. And what we'll start to see, though, the stuff that I tend to talk about is stuff that will just in our understanding, when we're hearing it, we'll be yeah, this is just, we know this to make sense, right? It just makes sense. So that's what I tend to stay on, is stuff that just kind of starts to make sense, like logically as you think it through. And I also gauge like what I'm talking about. If it's not resonating with the community at all, then it's not really, people aren't ready for that. And I also have like people that I talk with individually that help me to gauge that with humanity too, with what I can share and what I can't, right? If that makes sense. So yeah, anyways, so that's my belief though, is there's spirit guides and spirit, and they guide me to disseminate information or to do whatever I do in my day, not just this, because this is just a portion of something that I do sometimes, right? Um, I'm also a father and etc. So I have a bunch of different things that I'm doing any day. So I wanted to just like kind of, that's what I believe. But the more scientific explanation of it, that is another way to frame this, is to say, well, no, it's not spirit, it's my subconscious mind that's manifesting this experience through an evolutionary process, and it's in a more automatic type way, but or less intelligent, or less superimposed by, or what's the word, because we are the vessels through creation, through which we create. Like, we are the creators of our reality, right? And we know this is true. If we just look at just logic, and we look at materialization and how things manifest into reality, we know that reality is a wave of energy. We know that through science, but not through science, I guess, but we know that through just logic. And so science would say that the subconscious mind is like pockets of subconscious that control the manifestations that you experience as sensory input to help guide you, right? And it's not spirit, right? So for example, that's what it's like. Or you could say that if we understand that we are creator, then we are the extraterrestrial groups that we talk with, if we're channeling information that way. So regardless of how we approach it, it's all sort of the same thing, is what I'm getting at. And the labels we apply to it is just different ways of talking about the exact same thing. And we all experience divinity in like our own unique ways. We experience our connection with source and our guides and whatever we have, our intuition, whatever we want to call it, the energy we work with. We all experience it in different ways. And so that's why mine's my guides and spirit team, whatever, my spirit homies. And other people have whatever they have, right? Some people, they just call them the voices, or who knows, right? And I think we're gonna have more wacky stuff kind of come out too. Like, people are gonna be more forward about this type of thing, because it's just gonna be very normal. Because humanity is like turning to this understanding that all is vibration and all this energy first, then comes physical manifest. So as that switches, the script switches, like, everything's going to start to adjust as 5D moves forward in the timelines. So having said all of that, I wanted to talk about like mental health and addiction, and how addiction can be used for spiritual growth, and or not even spiritual, but personal development, and like sort of the purpose of it. Like, why would an intelligent creator, or why would addiction happen, that type of thing. And so I just wanted to talk about it. It's the reason addiction happens is because we are designed, like life itself seeks the path of least resistance, right? That's why rivers flow the way they do, and things like that, right? It's the path of least resistance. And so when the body feels a certain way, we realized as humans, we can actually eat this thing, and the body starts to feel a different way, right? And then we were like, we can actually mix these other things together and then make the body feel this way. And so as we understood that, they were like shortcuts to route the body to feeling a different way, right? Or manifesting in physicality a chemical composition that would feel like X or Y or, whatever. So it's a result of our own intelligence and our own desire to find the path of least resistance. But in that desire, we create shortcuts to feelings of, let's say, like the way pain relief, like an opiate pain reliever, right? We take an opiate and it relieves the pain by blocking some neurons or whatever it does, magic, sorcery, in the brain, in the neuroscience. And it causes us to not feel as much pain. And we also feel kind of warm and we feel like giddy maybe or whatever. It's pleasurable, right? And then there are side effects, like it makes some people feel itchy and whatever else, makes some people nauseous, who knows. But that's kind of the experience. So now we have this shortcut to a remedy. So we'll take the shortcut. And then addiction starts to happen when the body changes the way that the body functions in order to compensate for that new like thing coming in all the time, right? But the reason that we actually get addicted is because we're addicted to the shortcut. Like we just seek the path of least resistance. That's what makes sense. And so there's no difference between being addicted to like it's literally the body's wired to sort of formulate these addictions, if that makes sense. But what ends up happening with a negative addiction, right? Like if you're addicted to running, is that a bad thing? Like you could probably run too much, but you kind of see what I'm saying? Like you can be addicted to anything, right? You're addicted to the dopamine or to the feelings and to whatever it is. So you can be addicted to anything. And it's the same sort of things that are occurring, the same dependence. And when we have addictions to, like, let's say an opiate, it's like we build a tolerance and then we start to have to take more of it and it starts to become a problem somehow for us in our life. And that's where the contrast starts to come in to go, okay, well, we keep taking this shortcut and now it's creating more of a problem than the shortcut ever enabled or the shortcut ever fixed, right? Like now it's this whole thing, right? And addicts will always tell you, like so many addicts will tell you that like they never could even comprehend addiction until they broke their leg and then they had to take some medication and became physically addicted to it without even like really realizing what was going on, and then tried to stop it and they're like, oh my god, this is what addiction's like. It's hard, right? And we have this sort of mentality, even though we don't mean to, like we're all, as a society, we're pretty understanding that addicts are not necessarily like weak people. They just made some bad decisions a bunch of times, really, is what happened, right? They made a bad decision and then they compounded that. And that bad decision is not even really, like, they designed it. If we start to talk about how, reality occurs, that bad thing that they decided to do was all created to experience the contrast of what they don't like. That makes sense. So we don't like this shortcut, and we need to experience that surrender of control to that shortcut, basically. Like if we try to shortcut our journey to a bliss feeling by taking a pill, let's say, then it eradicates the journey itself, right? It makes that whole journey kind of pointless. So in order for that journey to still have meaning, there has to be contrast, right? And so we have to experience that. And that's why addiction is a thing at all. And it's like a natural thing that will occur as consciousness evolves. And then it's for the consciousness to eventually start to understand how that addiction is happening. And then understand that there's the balance between when the body signals, right? The body starts to signal you, right? Like you start to really crave it. You're like, oh, I need this in order to feel normal. Like these signals are negative signals that are engineered to steer you away from addiction, right? But as a society, we've built these walls around, like, just the idea that quicker is better and like those type of concepts, right? Like, or no pain, no gain, things like that. Like these types of weird concepts that don't make sense. Like you have to experience pain to gain, and things like that don't make really a lot of sense. Yes, sometimes you have to go through something painful to rebirth into something new, right? Of course, sometimes, but these like rigid structures are sort of catalysts for a lot of that addiction behavior, if that makes sense. It's usually to combat like some state or status that we don't want because of some belief structure we have normally, like to cope with something, right? Like, so if I think I have ADHD, I'll take Ritalin or Adderall or whatever. But ADHD itself was your brain was designed that way by you to experience reality in this particular way so that you could behave in this way. And then the body was like, oh well, this is a disorder. It was told this is a disorder, right? And starts to try to change things, right? So if we start to understand that the whole thing's shifted, like we don't experience reality and then like see it and experience it and then like understand it. We create it, then we see it. That makes sense. You have to take the drug medication to make yourself just feel normal, not sick. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's for everyone. Every single person, like literally, we're designed to seek the path of least resistance. That's like how life works, right? We're all designed this way. And so the fact that society like kind of like we say that there's no stigma, but there is still, right? Like people make opinions and judge people, right? So even as somebody that I've abused substances my whole life, and I've had problems with addiction, not a huge problem with like any really bad crazy thing. But I just understand addiction, and I still smoke cigarettes, for example. And but all of us do things that we are addicted to the feeling of getting, right? So like something that's pretty harmless is like most people are addicted to caffeine. Most people, I would say, I don't know what the stats are, but a lot of people have coffee every day, and if they don't, they will likely have withdrawal. Whether they know it's from the caffeine or not, they'll probably have physical withdrawal. They don't have it. But that's a type of addiction that like nobody cares about because it doesn't cause major problems for most people. It's not like and it's also not a sexy media thing, right? Like it doesn't ruin lives. You're not going to hear about a lot of caffeine ruined lives, right? Things like that. So it's not sexy to talk about it, really. But there's tons of stuff like that. That like it's not the greatest for us, but we are addicted to doing it. And it's because we're designed to pursue things that feel good, because we are divinity. We are creators and divine. We are angelics in form, if that makes sense. And like it's hard to wrap our head around initially. When I first like started to understand this, I was like, but I don't like that's a little bit, I feel a little special saying that, right? Like I feel like that. But it is true. We're all the most special thing in the universe because we are the lens through which we see the universe. So we are all. But there's obviously individuals of us, right? So we're unique in that respect. There's unique fragments of perspective. But we are all creator, right? Does that make sense? And so when we like start to understand that we've orchestrated this entire uh, thing in order to experience that type of withdrawal and addiction and all this stuff, like we start to be like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like if you were the type of person that would walk around and think an addict is weak for being an addict, then likely you're probably the type of person that is eventually at some point gonna have an experience where you have an addiction to something, where you can be like, oh, I get it, it sucks, right? Like that's the lesson that you would subscribe to when you were designing your life. And that's literally what we do as like higher selves and souls that are orchestrating our existence as a collective and individually. That's how it works. And so I just wanted to talk about that because we need to like flip the script on the stigma. It's not just mental health or drug addiction either. It's all judgment, really. When one of the people like make a mistake, a very like, let's say it's a gross misconduct, like a murder. Gross misconduct is murder. Let's call it, like, because that's not a good thing, right? Collectively we can agree that we shouldn't probably murder people. Actually, you know, I say that, but like there's the death penalty and stuff still, which is bananas. But anyways, so collectively though, we can agree that we don't want people to murder people, right? We can just say that that's probably something we can agree on. So when somebody when somebody murders someone, we don't go, that person is bad, because that's not really what occurred. That person's soul and the other person's soul orchestrated that event to happen. And that's crazy, right? Sounds a little out there, because who would orchestrate that? Well, you would. And they did. That's what occurred. We know this to be true. Like it's more or less just logical to get that. We attract into our experience what we create as divinity itself. And as long as we're not getting too tied up into dogma, because the dogma causes like religious constructs and different, you know, issues. Sorry, I'm just reading some of the comments. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Your addiction can serve you until it doesn't anymore. Eventually, what happens is you experience enough negativity from the addiction. You hit what they call the rock bottom. And sometimes that rock bottom, like it's like a trick rock bottom where you just go back to it and make relapses, right? But eventually, there's a rock bottom when you typically will learn the lesson, the actual full lesson, which is done like from the higher perspective view. Because if you think about it that way, like the physical reality that you're experiencing was manifested before you experienced it, right? It's manifested by spirit, and then you experience it. So if we know that's the case, or if that's what our system of belief is, right? We have to just assume it's because it's either that, like when we really get down to it, it's either that's happening, or we're just like sacks of bones that flop around, and when we die, that's it. It's really like pretty much one of those. So you can choose to believe, I guess, whatever you want, right? And that's why I don't talk about like God versus religion versus different systems of beliefs, because I think that those beliefs, the structures of those things, just limit the discussion. It's not that I have a preference to any of them. I subscribe to my own system that does not have any name, so that I can find anyway. So it's more like a jigsaw puzzle of the systems that made sense, right? Just through my own discernment, and then through what I get from what I called my spirit team. How can I overcome my addiction? Okay, so well, that's part of the understanding is that like you'll stop when you're ready to stop. That makes sense. And I'm not trying to take the responsibility off of you. I'm trying to put it on you, right? And I'm saying this as somebody who understands it. So I'm not talking down or anything like that. I understand the feeling very well. When we're done with it, that's when we're done. And it can take more than we thought to get there. Like the low that we need to get to stop. But when we truly grasp that we're done, like with the substance, whatever it is, that it's caused enough and that's it, then we won't have we will have made that decision, and then it's, the lesson's already been learned. But until the lesson's fully learned, then we'll keep recurring the lesson. And it happens not just with addiction, it happens with any type of lesson like this. Like it's the same thing with anything that we do that's negative to us. The reason it's negative is because our emotions are saying that's not for you. This is somehow not for you. So when it feels bad, we need to stop it. And it's really that simple for all of life. Because when we act in alignment with source, it feels good. It's really that simple. And it's so hard. It's so hard. But it's not, right? Like it's very straightforward. It's each moment, is this in alignment with source or not? And if it's not, then you're doing it because you need to see the contrast of why it sucks. And until you see why it sucks so much, you're going to keep doing it, more or less. Unless you got to change the plan. The plan is for you to experience these moments of test and trial and challenge. You designed this challenge for you. So now you need to overcome this challenge that you designed for yourself. If that's another way to kind of think about it. And we apply that to every single thing that we perceive to be an issue for us that's external, then we can start to really shift our entire perception of the world. So that's kind of what I'm trying to help get out is because it's all the law of attraction and manifestation, right? And people are starting to really understand that is really how it works. And what I'm trying to say is okay guys, but you're a step ahead. You got to step back one more and realize that by the time you're thinking about all the stuff you want, there's already been, workings happened that you're not necessarily aware of, right? There's a whole other plan happening. And so what I'm trying to do is get people to try to think up here when they can. Because that's how we raise consciousness. And yeah. So that's kind of what I'm doing, I guess. Somehow. And I didn't even really understand how to word it until I just did that now. So, but that's, I guess, my goal is to help awaken the hero within, right? Yeah. I was as well, Kevin. Yeah, I had issues with that as well. I was molested before. And I won't go into it in too detail. I'll just say that I was molested when I was 14. So I understand that type of thing as well. Yeah. And that's part of the reason that I'm the one talking about these things is because I've experienced them. So nobody can really say, you don't know about or say, yeah, you wouldn't say that if this happened to you. Well, because that happened to me. So I can say, yeah. And if somebody says, were you grateful for that? I would say, yeah, I'm grateful for that experience. Yeah. And I could say that with honesty. And people don't have to believe that, but I've been able to do the healing to get to that point now where I can say that confidently. And that doesn't mean um I've talked about it a bunch in videos, but forgiveness is the one of the hardest and most important things that we do, and we forgive others as well as ourselves every time we think we made a mistake. That's part of that's how we learn and self-develop, right? Yes, everything. That's right. Exactly, Amber. Exactly. Everything. Like, everything that we go through is what forms where we're at. And so all we can do is go, all of this made me. Let's do better. And then the next day is better and better, better, better. And then we get to a point where we start to just see all of the sort of beauty and mystery of it all. And that's where you would call, I guess, enlightenment, I imagine. If we're trying to put terms on that. Where enlightenment is a very consistent state of non-suffering. Because I don't think it's a switch like some people maybe it is, maybe I don't know. I think it's more of a gradual. I think everybody has shadow that maybe they don't see. And until they see it, they're limited. Does that make sense? The more the angel sees the devil in themselves, the more their power expands, their creative power. Does that make sense? So as divinity, that's how our power expands, is the more we understand our own capacity to be dark, right? Through the devil is the only way for a god to be born. And I can't remember where that was said, but I thought it was very profound when I read that. I wish I knew who said it. I have no idea. So it wasn't me. That's for sure. But it's through the contrast of darkness that we see and understand light, right? That's what that means, right? And that's what this reality is duality, so that we can perceive the difference. And then as creators, step into divinity and take off the training wheels, because right now we have training wheels sort of on our creative capabilities as a collective. It's like we're not like at our power. We're stepping into it because most people aren't talking about this stuff, right? And that's why I'm so grateful for like people like you that are watching and hanging out. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful process. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be bumps that feel bad, right? Like, that's what we have to stop beating ourselves up about too. Is because we see enlightenment as this like place to get to, but that's not how it works. It's evolution, so it's cyclical and forever. So you can't look at it as a destination. It's a now. It is now. It is being itself. That's the goal, right? And when we're like, oh, I get it. I'm already there. Oh, right? It feels like that. Literally, when I realized that, I giggled for I don't know, a couple days probably. I'm just like like an idiot because it's just funny. It's like at that point when you realize it, you're like, oh, I get it. I don't need to work so friggin' hard. Yeah, loving yourself is the most important thing, literally, because you are all. If you are only love, then you will see and receive only love. And that is literally how it works. That's how the whole universe is constructed. The reason we experience darkness is because we need to see that darkness in ourselves for some reason, and we've decided to see it. And it's hard to hear that. It's hard because that means that we're like I decide when I was molested, for example, I decided to have that happen. I have to accept that I created that experience. That's weird to say. Even now, saying it is a weird taste in my mouth to say that, and I'm very okay with it. It happened a long time ago, like and I'm so past that I don't ever think of it. Um, and even if I do, it's more like yeah, that was a lesson. that was a lesson, right? Like I'm sort of that removed from the experience now at this point. It was when I was 14 and I'm 34. So it took me a while, right? I don't know. I got over it when I was maybe 33. So, I mean, these are the types of things though. And that's just, you have to do that too, but not just from this Sean. You have to also do that through your energetic vessel, your Merkaba and light body, which is your ancestral line. So what I was doing a lot in this lifetime was healing my ancestral line, not so much Sean, because as a person, Sean didn't get into too much crap. Like, he was more or less pretty good to most people most of the time, or he tried to be. He didn't always succeed. I talk about him like he's in this second person because when I hit a point, there's like a shift, and I had a soul shift that I talked about in one of my other videos if you're interested. I think it's called My Naming or whatever, if you're interested in that. And it's where I got my naming from spirit. Our reality is a mirror reflection of our inner worlds. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's so hard to... And really what I'm trying to help people understand is, like, once we like get it, really it's about relaxing on yourself a bit, like, and really understanding it, and then like reminding yourself of that all the time. And as you see that illusion fade away, like, you'll fall back into it. You go back and forth in limbo between, right? It's not a person, like, I fall out of it too. So I'm not like sitting up on like a pedestal saying, you guys do this. Like, I don't mean it like that, right? It's and that's part of it too, is to understand, like, when you first sort of like start to understand that you're seeing a little bit more than most people, then you'll start to be like, oh, I'm special. Like, almost immediately, just naturally, most people will start to kind of get that. And then you have to correct that, right? That will correct itself. Because as you start to feel special, something's going to happen to remind you that you're not specialer. We're all special. We're all equally special. If that makes sense. Yeah. I'm similar, Nathan. Like, I'm similar like that. Like, if I'm like if I don't have some person or like activity to like engage me in like dealing with something, I'm that extroverted that, yeah, like I want to numb because I'm too like all in my brain all the time. Yeah, that's where a lot of my coping came from. And it was mostly, for me, it was around anything that would dull my experience. So now I use cannabis still. I smoke weed, and it's legal in Canada. And I'm not like, I don't care. I smoke it, and daily. Am I addicted to it? Likely, I would say a little bit physically. Yeah, like if I stopped, it would probably be annoying a bit or something. And I don't let it bother me at all. I don't like I don't know. So, but it's but I also know it's not the greatest for me. I use it because it relaxes me and I like it, and I don't have negative side effects that I experience. I don't have coughing issues and stuff. I like, you know what I mean? So I'm not getting signaled to like really stop it from spirit or anything. In fact, it's almost the opposite. Like, my spirit team seems to like joke about my pot use with me, which was weird for me to experience, to be honest. So it's and that's why one of the just many different reasons why we like judging people for their whatever they do, especially if it's not harming. Like, if there was negative consequences to my cannabis use, for example, which there probably are, like, I would say, just if we look at it objectively, there are positives and negatives to all consumption of anything you put in your body at all, right? Dietary anything. There's going to be pros and cons if we were to weigh them, right? So just knowing that, then it's all just decision, right? Um, and so it's like easing up the reins on ourselves a bit, like relax how much, because we give ourselves so much shit, and society gives us so much shit too. Once somebody knows that you've been addicted to something, that's how they often will see you, as an addict or a recovering addict, and that's how they will see you for, and that's something as an addict that you have to live with. That people just think that you're on drugs even when you're not. So whether you are or not, what they see is a whole other, it doesn't matter what you are because they've already made up this thing. And as a person, I've had to experience that like so many weird times that I've just thought it was really funny because I'm very bouncy and energetic and weird. And so it's very easy to assume that I'm on drugs. And if you know me, you'll know that I've done drugs. So, um, you know, there it is. How do you know? And that's where it's been really funny for me because I'm so weird that like anybody that sees me doing anything weird, some people will be like, "You're on drugs." Other people will be like, "You're weird." No one ever really knows, other than me, right? And that's what it's been really interesting and eye-opening for me as an individual growing up in this world, because a lot of people think I'm on drugs all the time, and it's just my world. So, and I don't even care anymore when I hear about it. I just laugh at it because I just like if my eyes are red or something. Somebody might comment or message me or something and be like, "You're so stoned in that video. You're stoned," and I'm like, even if I was, what is what? So, um, but that's barely ever happened. That's that to that degree, right? Like that's barely ever happened, but it has happened. So, um, it's it's just something that I live with, and actually, it's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this video is because I just thought it was so funny, and I was like, wait, I wish most like addicts could really see this, and I think many do. Like many see it that way and laugh about it because what are they realize that that person now sees you this way, and that's it. There's nothing you can do because it will not change unless you change you, right? Unless you act just this way, right? If you're doing any behavior that they could attribute to your past drug use, then watch out because you're on drugs. Um, and Yeah, exactly. Biggest keys to healing addicts is unconditional love. Yeah. Um, Unconditional love, support, and compassion. But the problem, the biggest problem that I've seen in the medical community is a lot of the people themselves that are treating addiction um, are doing so, in my experience, from not everyone, but just a lot are doing so from a place of like they've witnessed it a lot, but not really experienced it themselves. So they don't really get it, but they get it clinically, right? And that's where an issue is because now when they get it clinically, but not through experience, then they're judging it based on their clinical knowledge, not judging it based on their experiential wisdom, which is the difference between like a clinical, you know, a practitioner of like a doctor who practices medical, you know, he's a doctor, right? Versus because they practice it, right? Experience it, and can therefore talk to it at an expert level. But that's sort of the distinctions there. And so because like we'll have social workers, for example, that are like they might be drug counselors that are not they've never had a drug addiction. And that's fine because we've decided as a society that they can do that. That's, whatever. But I'm just saying they don't get it. I don't think. Generally, in my experience. But many do. Like it depends, because some people get into this. Like I could see myself doing something like that if I wasn't doing what I'm doing. I could see myself doing something like that now that I've experienced it myself. So yeah, the love has to be unconditional, because the addict too, people they start to think like start to think you're like stupid in many ways, right? Like you're just dumb or weak and stupid. So and it's unfortunate, but it's true. It's true that this many people will see you this way, and it becomes a just a fact of your living. And it's really unfortunate, because it damages the ability to heal. Part of the reason you have so much trouble healing is because the cycle of negative energy on you is continual. Because again, when we talk about manifestation as well, things happen in physical, and there's delay too, right? So even if we make the change in ourselves as the addict too, we're now fixed. That's it, we're fixed. And we decide, and we're not going to mess it up again. And let's pretend we can also see in the future and we don't mess it up, right? We know. Let's just pretend. The rest of the world hasn't caught up to that, right? And so they still see the old person that they created in their mind the last time that they engaged with you. So now it's about all these people. You have to continually remind yourself and show this consistent whatever, if that's what you care to do. Or you just do as you do, which is the route I go. I just do as I do. I don't care what anyone says or thinks. It's irrelevant to me, literally. And that's why I am the way I am. It's the only way for this me to be, is that way. Otherwise, I don't function properly. Really, like that's when I try to cope with drugs and stuff. Is when I don't function in my like cone of truth with my being. Yeah. And that's my point, is that I had to do all that crap to like get there, to understand that too. And that's why I have to be the one to also talk about it like that, and just be transparent about my life, so that it's not like I'm saying, like I was an addict and now I'm healed. Like I still use cannabis, so I'm not saying that I am like past any of this, right? Like I'm still in this too, doing the same thing. So that's how I'm trying to approach the like. Whenever Ra said it in the Law of One, learn teaching, teach learning. That's how I see these types of things. Is like, because whenever I even talk about all this stuff, I like get more out of it. So it helps me to like understand it more, because I get like sort of the information intuitively from spirit, and then I like try to make sense of it and say it to you. But I don't write things down and stuff like that, and that's just, I don't know, I just don't do that. So most light workers, yeah, dark workers, exactly, yeah, the wounded healer. Yeah, and yeah, reputation is diminished, and it can be redeemed. Um, the issue with reputation is that, and the issue of the like the concept of it entirely is that it revolves around what other people decide, right? So like if we worry about it, then we're limiting our, why, it's like, do we have influence on the weather? Yes, but individually, I don't know how to make it rain or not, right? I'm not there yet. Maybe you guys know how to do that. I don't know how to call the rain in yet. I'm gonna try though. I'm trying. Now, so where was I going with that? What was my point there? I don't know. I lost track of my point there. Something happens or a situation. Yeah. Basically, what I think, Kevin, and this is hard. This is what I had to learn, is that like I create these We have to understand that we are responsible for all that we experience. Like, it's kind of like if you turn on the radio, right, and you go to the country station and it starts playing country music, and you're like, fuck, I hate country music. It's pardon my French. Why did you go to the station and look at it? Or listen to it? Look at it. Because you wanted to hear it. For some reason. You wanted to be upset about it. Why? So that you could remember, oh, I hate this. That's why everything happens. Everything. So you experience it to go, oh, yeah, I hate this. Shit. I hate it. And then you do it again. You're like, yeah, I really hate that. I really hate it. And I've been there, and I know it. I'm there. Like, I get it. So, my advice in that regard is to, like, try to get that, because once we kind of get that, we can start to kind of change the story. Once we understand that, like, oh, the story's actually, like, I'm enacting the story that I made. So help me change the story, which is where our subconscious comes in. That's reprogramming our subconscious, which is really just positive thinking. Honestly, that's really what it is. Self-love, compassion. We've talked about it, like unconditional love, compassion. It's reprogramming our subconscious. That's how we get out of it. Really, if we talk about like how we actually get out, yeah, that's the way. Is support and love and compassion and trying and releasing a little bit on the reins of judgment of ourselves first and foremost. Don't worry what the other people are judging. We've already established that we're drug addicts, so don't worry about them. They've already decided that. Like they know that. We know that. Everyone knows that, right? So we're at that part. So now it's about love. It's all about love, baby. But that's it. That's it. It's not given as a child. No. This is before you even come into a being. You've already decided that your vessel is going to be tuned to have these predispositions, right? Like, think of it that you're that far back. You have to get that far back. You decided all of it. All of it is that's what I'm saying. Is you decided every little piece and part of your entire experience that you see. You are creator. I am. We are one. So we are all sort of, you can think of your body as like the finger of Gaia, maybe, let's say. Because Gaia would be our logos. And we are sub-logos of Gaia, right? And so what that means is we're like the finger of Gaia is maybe Sean, is one way to look at it this way. And Gaia is a finger of the sun. Does that make sense? And those are consciousnesses, that real consciousnesses that are intelligent, that control, and express and have memory and experience. And it all connects into one, which is source. That is how the universe is made. And it is all actually all one thing, which is like a blob, really, of just energy. And in the first universe is a singularity of only one all. First universe. And in this universe, we are the second universe, the duality universe, where there's polarity. And this is where the all became the many, Big Bang, and I am. Oh, I am. I am. That was the word of creation itself. And this is what started all this. So we are it. We are all. We are one. Does that make sense? but it's hard to, yeah, it's a little much to get our head around it. So once we're like, oh, right. Once we get it, that's when we've sort of awakened. That click will happen where we'll like kind of get it, like maybe for a little bit, just like a glimpse, right? And that's when we sort of wake up usually, and we'll come into spirituality or not, or we'll go whatever. But yeah, we are love. That's all we are. That's like literally. One time I asked for, I don't know if I talked about this in a video or not. One time I asked for spirit to show me how much they love me. This wasn't even my higher self. This was just one of my spirit guides. And I felt overwhelmed with positive love energy that I couldn't move for like 10 minutes, and I was just crying. And it was one of the most profound things like I've ever experienced. And it was very like, for me to just request it and then immediately receive it back like that was very crazy to me. For one, it actually, after that happened, I very much questioned like my own sanity in many ways, because I'm like, was that even real? Like, oh my god, right? Because it was that crazy. And then right after that happened, though, the incapacitation for like 10 minutes as well, I felt like I was gonna almost like I was gonna black out. I wasn't scared at all. I wasn't nervous, but it just felt like oh my god, I'm gonna pass out from this. Like, it was that good. And then I was told that was like 10% maybe, or something like that. It was like a fraction is the sort of the knowing that I understood of it. And then I was like, ugh. And then they said, you cannot understand. The love is infinity. It's infinite. This is a fraction of infinite that you just had. And then I was like, that's how much you love me. Cool, bro. I love you too. Like, like, what do you even, right? So, anyways, I think that's it for the stream. I think I did about an hour. And so I'm gonna take off. Oh, in the description, I forgot to announce this at the beginning, but in the description, I'm going to put my Fiverr link. I do like one-on-one tarot readings now for like $5 for like a 3-card reading. And then I think it's 15 for like a 7-ish card. And then I do a deluxe one for like 25, where it's a big old spread that I do. But it's, I'm trying to bring some extra money in because I'm broke as hell. So, and people said that they were interested in that. So I'll put the link in the description or whatever. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. The new Earth is going to be a big change, inside and out. Yeah, man. It's going to be huge. It's going to be big. Once we shift, the collective's going to, like, it's going to start to really steamroll soon. I know this to be true, just based on what I've, with spirit. Anyway, that's what I'm saying. I'm guessing. So, oh, it's all right, Lynette. Next time, and also like the archive will be up. It's not going to go anywhere, and it's I think it's interesting stuff. So, if you wanted to catch it, you can dive in there. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Love all your faces. Thank you for your time. Very grateful and appreciative. Oh, you have questions? Okay, leave them in the comments, and I'll get to them. I promise. I have to take off though. I promise I'll get to the questions. Just put them in the comments and I'll get to them. Yeah. Video's gonna stay up. Thank you guys. All right. Take care.